Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. And if you're new, subscribe, like, and comment all down below. And today we are reading more Mikey. And we are starting at chapter 4, duh. And let's get started. The next morning, chapter 4. The next morning, Charles lingered at home until the very last minute, hating to leave Mikey for even a few hours. Why did he have to go to school? School. Mikey was so much fun to be around. Charles had never met a puppy with such a sparkling, merry personality. Mikey seemed to be in a great mood. All the time, she bounced around happily, never missing an opportunity for more attention. Like last night, Charles told his best friend Sammy during recess. They were waiting for their turn at the plate during a kickball game after dinner. Buddy curled up on his bed, but Mikey still wanted to show off her tricks. She kept it up until we were all yawning and couldn't stay up a minute longer. She should be on that show, America's Most Talented Pets, Sammy said. I mean, if everything you're saying is true, she could probably win the top prize. Just $10,000, he added, shrugging. He acted like it was no big deal. $10,000? Charles hadn't seen the show, of course. It seemed like the winning pets usually had the whole act that they did along with their owners. He'd forgotten that the top prize was so big. Charles was distracted for the rest of the day at school, picturing himself and Mikey on a stage lit with whirling laser lights, the music pounding as he and Mikey did their act. He imagined a panel of judges watching in amazement as Mikey charmed them, and he pictured the audience going wild with cheers and applause. He wasn't exactly sure what he was doing up there, but otherwise he could see the whole thing, including the part where the top judge shook Charles and Mikey's hands and gave them a giant check for $10,000. Then Charles could announce that Mikey be flooded with calls and texts from people who wanted a doctor. This was the point in the daydream where Charles pictured Mom and Dad agreeing that Buddy needed an adorable little sister and that Mikey could stay with them forever as long as he was dreaming. Why not to go all the way and make it so Mikey became part of the Petersons family? After school, Sammy and Charles practically sprinted all the way home. Mikey and Buddy met them at the front door, all grins and wagging tails. Wow, she really is cute, said Sammy, dropping into his knees to pet Mikey. He petted Buddy too. And so are you, he said. Sammy loved Buddy and didn't want him to be jealous. She was a good girl today, Mom reported. She ran through her tricks for me, but then she settled down and took it easy. She and Buddy napped for the most of the afternoon while I worked, so I'm sure they're both ready for some playtime. Charles and Sammy took the puppies into the backyard. Sammy hooted with laughter when he saw how Mikey tore around the yard. It's the bitchin' blitz, Charles told him. Once she had Once she had worked out her energy a little by running around, Charles called Mikey over. "Sit, Mikey," he said. Mikey's butt hit the ground before he even finished the command. She smiled up at him, tilted her head at the adorable angle, and wagged her tail. "Easy peasy, easy peasy. What's next?" "Shake, shake," Charles said, holding out his hands. Mikey put her paw on his hand, and then, with without him asking, she offered her other paw. Then she got up on her hind legs and offered him a high five, then a low five with each paw. "Come on, let's make this fun." Sammy burst out laughing. "Wow, you weren't kidding. She's a superstar. What else can she do?" "She likes to dance," Charles said, and before the words were out of his mouth, Mikey was up on her hind legs, spinning around. She grinned up at the boys as she whirled. "Like this, you mean? I do like it. I mean, like this? You mean? I do like it. I mean, I love it. I love it to dance." "She's amazing," Sammy said. "That's it. We have to put together an act for America's most talented pets. She can dance while we sing." He jumped up and started waving his arms around. She said Charles. He was glad Sammy was so enthusiastic, but he, oh no, but he, but he, but he was glad Sammy was so enthusiastic, but he couldn't quite picture it. "Wouldn't we need a little more than just the two of us up there singing?" Charles once had very bad stage fright, but he'd mostly gotten over it when he acted in a community theater play. He could picture himself on stage, but not just standing there with one other boy singing on TV in front of millions of people. Was Sammy really serious? Charles had thought they were just fooling around. "Sure, of course, we'd have more," said Sammy. "You could play keyboards, right? And I could play drums." Charles raised his eyebrows. It was true that he had taken a few piano lessons, and he did have a keyboard in the garage, but it was more of a toy than a real instrument. It had built-in loops, so it sounded like you were really making music when you touched just about any key. And the only drums Sammy had were a pair of bongos his grandpa had given him. His mom had made him keep them in the basement since she couldn't stand the racket. Sammy made when he banged away on them. "And Lizzie can play a tambourine." Sammy was so excited his words were tripping over each other. "We can have a whole band. We already know a bunch of songs." He began to sing one of the songs their class had performed at the school's last open house. Mikey had been looking back and forth as they talked, as if she was following their conversation. Now she stood up on her hind legs and began to dance in rhythm to Sammy's singing. "We can do this thing. I'm so ready." Charles cracked up. Maybe Sammy was right. Mikey was born to perform. "Okay," he said, shrugging. "I guess we're Gonna go for it. Chapter 5. Charles and Sammy headed for the garage, bringing Mikey and Buddy along. Said Charles when he turns on the lights and spotted his keyboard in a corner behind a tangle of bicycles, lawn tools, and yard games. I don't know if. Come on, said Sammy. We can clear out the snow tires and cross country skis. That had never exactly been put away for the summer. Charles gulped. Now he understood why his dad kept talking about how they really had to clean out the garage. This was not what he had in mind for the afternoon, but Sammy was already moving things around, with Mikey and Buddy helping by finding old tennis balls and baseball mitts. Charles took a breath and followed them into the mess. A half-hour later, they'd cleared enough room for a practice space. Charles' keyboard stood in the middle, and Sammy had run home to grab his bongos. By now, Buddy had curled up for a nap, but Mikey was still prancing around, investigating her new surroundings. What should we play first? Sammy asked Charles. Tried to remember. Now the keyboard worked. He pushed the button and hit a few keys and repeating beat. That sounded like elevator music starting up. Sammy grinned. Sounds great, he said. He began to bang on the bongos, nodding along. Mikey stood on her hind legs in front of the keyboards and began to spin around. Her ears flew out and her eyes sparkled as she danced. Oh yeah, I love music. Look at her go, crowed Sammy. I told you, she's a natural celebrity. Charles grinned at him and kept playing. He knew they were just fooling around, but it was a lot of fun, especially with Mikey dancing along. Woo-hoo! Woo-hoo! Someone called out. Charles' hands froze on the keys. He looked up to see Lizzie standing by the door with her hands on her hips. What are you guys doing in here? You're making a racket, but Mikey's dancing. It's amazing. The whole story spilled out, with Sammy and Charles taking turns to explain their plan for getting on America's Most Talented Pets. Mikey stopped dancing when the music ended and pranced over to Lizzie for some pets. And you can be in the band too, Sammy said. The judges will love an all-kid band. Lizzie laughed. Sure they will, she said. Then she picked up the tambourine Charles had found under a big flower pot and began to bang it on her hip. Charles hit another button on his keyboard and it made noise like a trumpet. Great, Lizzie said. She started to bounce around as she banged the tambourine. Mikey ran in circles around her, then started to do the whole new dance step where she hopped forward and backward. They all cracked up. It was hard to keep playing and singing when Mikey was being so funny and cute. Maybe Lauren knows someone who would be interested in adopting Mikey. Lizzie said Lauren was a woman who danced with her dogs. They had met when Lizzie was taking care of a beautiful Irish setter named Rusty. They played for a long time, just fooling around with their instruments. No matter how silly the music got, Mikey danced gracefully, sometimes on her hind legs and sometimes on all four paws, but always with a big happy doggy grin. Charles could tell she was having the time of her life. Bravo! someone called when they'd finished. It was Mom carrying the bean on her hip. She clapped when they stopped playing, and the bean clapped too. You guys sure are having a good time. What made you pull out your instruments? Charles explained about America's Most Talented Pets, and we can win $10,000, he said, and get famous and everything, and find Mikey a really great home, of course. He knew that. Mom was always eager to find homes for their foster puppies. Mom raised her eyebrows. Well, maybe, anyway. You're having fun, and so is Mikey. Fun! Fun! Yelled the bean, struggling to get down. You want to make music with the big kids? Mom asked. She set the bean down, and he toddled toward Charles. I play, the bean said, reaching up for the keyboard. Mom, Charles pleaded, can't he play something else? This is my instrument. No, my instrument, mine, yelled the bean. Charles rolled his eyes. He picked his brother up and let him push some keys, while Lizzie and Sammy banged away on the drums and tambourine. The truth was, it didn't sound so much worse when a tiny kid was playing. Mikey sure couldn't tell the difference. She spun and hopped, dancing happily. The bean laughed, his googly laugh, as he poked at the keys, bouncing up and down in Charles' arms. Mom gave Charles a grateful look. Dinner's almost ready, she said, so it's time to finish for today. Later that night, after dinner, Mom pulled out her laptop, and the whole family sat down together to check out the old episode of America's Most Talented Pets. The show was amazing. There was a parrot who could quote Shakespeare, a cat who knew how to fetch, and a beagle who sang the national anthem. That's cool. Mikey is as good as any of them, isn't she? Charles said. He knew their band wasn't really ready for prime time, but it was fun to dream. And Mikey really was very talented. Mom scrolled through the website. Here, it tells how to apply to be on the show. She clicked on the link and read silently for a moment. Then she sighed. Oh well, she said. Chapter 6. What, Charles asked. He had a sinking feeling in his stomach. Chapter 6. What, Charles asked. He had a sinking feeling in his stomach. That sigh of Mom's did not make it sound like good news. America's Most Talented Pets is now booking acts for next year's season. Mom, read, please. Submit your video now for consideration. We will call within 6 months with our decision. She closed her laptop, sat back. Next year's season, she said. That's way too far off. Mikey needs to be in her forever home long before that. No, said Lizzie. Oh, too bad, said Dad. I was totally picturing Mikey on that show. But bad, echoed the bean. Sammy's going to be bummed, said Charles. Unlike his friends, he had never really believed that they could win $10,000, but it had been fun to think about. He dragged himself to bed soon after that, feeling pretty bummed himself. I'm sure you'll come up with another good with Mikey at his heels. The next morning, Charles woke to Mikey licking his face. Come on, wake up. Time to practice some more. That was so much fun. Charles groaned. Hi, Mikey, he said. I hate to tell you this, but I can't hang out today. Today's my last cooking class. He threw back the covers sat up and gathered the little fluff ball into his arms. "I'll miss you," he whispered as he nuzzled her fluffy soft fur. Mikey was so cute. He couldn't believe she wasn't going to get to be on the TV, at least not while he was fostering her. Today's class, which was 3 hours instead of 2, was going to be a special one. Charles was sure that Mom knew something about it, but she wouldn't tell him, no matter how many times he asked. When Charles arrived at the community center, he found Miss Holly alone in the kitchen. "Oops, I guess I'm early," he said. "That's cool," said Miss Holly. "We'll have time for you to tell me how that adorable Mikey is doing." Charles filled Miss Holly in while she bustled around getting ready for class. "Aw, that's a shame," she said when she heard about how long it would take to get on America's Most Talented Pets. "It sounded like a great idea. Maybe you can still do something with your new band though." "Like what?" Charles asked. Charles asked. "Do you know what a bunker is?" Miss Holly asked as she laid out knives, bowls, measuring cups and spoons, casserole pans, and baking cups and spoons, casserole pans, and baking sheets. Charles shook his head. "Nope. It's a person who makes music or does an act on the street for people walking by. Usually they set out a hat or a basket for people to put money in if they like the act." She smiled. "My husband was a busker on the streets of Brooklyn. When I first met him, I think I fell in love at first sight when I saw him juggling watermelons." Charles laughed. He liked the idea of busking with Mikey dancing in front of them. They'd be sure to get a lot of attention, even if their band wasn't exactly professional. They have a good time. They could donate it to Caring Paws, the local animal shelter. "Thanks for the idea," he told Miss Holly. As the rest of the class began to trickle in, "That sounds fun." Soon everyone had arrived and the room buzzed with excited talking. Miss Holly clapped her hands. "Okay, kiddos, listen up," she said. "Today's class is going to be a little different. We're going to take a field trip." "Cool! Where are we going right now?" Everybody started talking again. Miss Holly crossed her arms and waited. Finally, the room grew quiet. She smiled. "We're going to one of my favorite places, the farmer's market. Has anyone been there before?" Charles raised his hands. Along with some of the other kids, the farmer's market took place in a little park in the middle of Littleton, under the shade of some big trees, where there were always lots of canopy tents set up, under which the farmers displayed their colorful vegetables and flowers. Charles liked going to the market when the weather was good. There was always something interesting to see there, and something Mom and Dad let him get a treat, like kettle corn or homemade chocolates. I have, he said. "I love it," Miss Holly nodded. "So do I," she said. "There's nothing better than buying food from the people who are growing it. Farmers are my heroes, and fruits and vegetables are extra delicious. You'll see it. You'll see. We're going to shop for our ingredients there, then come back and cook ourselves a fabulous lunch." "How will we pay for all the ingredients?" Kendra asked. "When you let me know how much money you need, I'll pay. It's a part of the class," said Miss Holly. She reached behind the table and pulled out 3 colorful woven baskets. Team Tomato, she called out. Charles, Kendra, and Jordan, you'll be making our main dish, ravioli, like in the movie? Charles asked. But what is it anyway? Said Miss Holly as she handed his team a red and purple basket. It's a summer in the bowl. That's what a luscious vegetable stew starring tomatoes, eggplants, garlic, onions, and a whole bunch of other beautiful veggies. Ew, said Louis, and a few other kids groaned. Charles thought it sounded kind of interesting. He had been branching out with that what vegetables he liked to eat. He hadn't tried eggplant yet. Team Carrot, Miss Holly said, calling out some names. Our appetizer squad. You'll be cutting up fresh raw vegetables and creating a delicious herby dip. She handed an orange basket to a boy named Jerome, and last but not least, Team Apple. Miss Holly handed over the last of the buckets, a red and green one. You'll be baking our dessert, a scrumptious, bubbling, cinnamon-smelling apple crisp with ice cream on top, of course. Charles felt his mouth watering. This was going to be the best field trip ever. Chapter 7, guys. So, guys, we're going to end this video right here. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment all down below. If you comment, you're great. Bye. See you next time.